One of the trends lately in RVs are these LED strip lights that you find under the awnings. Well, our RV is a little bit older and was produced before the days these basically became standard equipment. So in this video, I'm going to install one of these LED strip lights underneath my awning. Whenever you search online for LED light strips, whether it be Amazon, eBay, or any other resource, you'll likely run into a whole bunch of different kinds. Some are called SMD 5050, some are 3528, WS2801. Well, the list is just confusing, it's mind-boggling. So in this video, I'm going to go over what each one of these are, and it'll help you make a selection of which one you want to use for your awning LED strip. So this project is split up into 4 different videos. In part 1, which you're watching now, we'll go through the more popular LED strip solutions. In part 2, we'll go over all the different controllers you might want to consider. Part 3, we're going to go through some mounting situations. And part 4, we're actually going to install it.
Well, this is the result of some of the shopping that I did to look for different types of LED strips. And I'll go over each one of these different styles because, as I said before, it can be really confusing. Now, this first one that I got running, this is known as a WS2801. And what's distinctive about this is that this is addressable. So you can see I can make some different changes. And what I mean by addressable is that each one of the individual LEDs can be turned on and off individually, as well as a different color. And so you'll see in this strip here, as I go through some of the functions on this remote, you can see where only an addressable one can give you this type of range of colors and things. Now, this may or may not be anything you need. And I'll tell you that right off the bat, I would discount this for most people because there's quite a bit of setup involved with this. So this may or may not be something that's going to be easily done. But if you're adventurous, why not give it a shot? There's also another type of addressable one, which is called a WS2811 and a WS2812. And the primary difference is clocking. So what you have to do is you got to buy, depending on which strip you get, you have to buy the proper interface circuit. I know this probably sounds foreign to you, but just trust me that that's some of the things you got to run across if you go with this style. Some of the other styles I have here, the other 2 predominant ones are called SMD 5050 or SMD 3528. And what that basically means is the SMD 5050 is actually the width and the length of each of the individual LED components. So if you were to take a micrometer and measure this one, you'd measure 5 millimeters this way and 5 millimeters that way. And that's where they come up with a 5050. And I'll bring this closer to the screen so you can see it. It looks kind of square. And these are the LEDs here. Now the 3528s, which is what I have here, these are 28 millimeter by 35 millimeter. So they are a little smaller and the output is a little bit lower. Now with the 5050 I've got plugged in here, this is known as an RGB, which means that there's a red, green, and blue element to these. And the way these work is, unlike the addressable ones, you cannot make any changes to each individual one. You can't turn each individual one on and off. All you can do is turn them all on, all off, or change the color of all of them to the same. You can get red, green, blue, and a composite white. So these are known as RGB. And here's another version of the 5050, and this is an RGBW, and that stands for red, green, blue, and white. You can also get RGBWW, which is red, green, blue, white, warm white. So let me turn this on, and you've got the same red, green, blue, and then a composite white, but you also have a true white, which is there. So you can see maybe the difference between the two. And what it actually uses is a separate LED for the warm white, or as it does for the composite white. Now the only issue with this is chip density. And what that means is how far away each one of these are. And so, to be honest with you, there's not that much of an advantage of going with the RGBW. I would go with the RGB here, and you actually have a higher chip density, and so it's a little more pleasing. Now finally, we'll talk about the RGB 3528s, and that's what this is here. And you'll see as I go through the colors here, things aren't quite as nice. You got red, you got green, you got blue, and then when you turn on white, all three of them come on, but the problem is they're so far apart that you don't get a result of a composite white. So if you go with the 3528 RGB, you're not going to get white out of it as you do with these, because these are much closer together. In fact, I can probably disconnect this one and connect this one, and this is the same thing. And again, if you look in here, you can see the red, green, and blue display elements in here. So if you want to go with a multicolor one, I would recommend going with the SMD 5050 RGBs. No need to go with the RGBW. Now if you want something just very basic, in the 3528, which is these as well, is you get monochrome. Now this one is white, only white, and in fact you don't really need a controller, because with this particular one, it's just got a positive and negative wire, and you just basically hook it up to 12 volts. So the simplest one is if you go with a monochrome SMD 3528, or you can go all the way up through the addressable one, which gives you all the different programming. Again, my thought is if you go with something addressable, you're probably just going to make your neighbors mad, because you're going to have this thing at night changing colors, and a marquee type theater lighting and things, and that might drive them kind of mad at you. And so either go with the 5050 RGB, which gives you multicolors, or just go with the monochrome. So the next thing I want to discuss is how waterproof these things are. Now these things are generally classified in accordance with the IEC standard 60529, which is known as ingress protection. And in the documentation, you'll generally see something called an IP rating. For example, IP67 is a common rating. The first digit, 6, is the dust protection, and all the time you'll find something that's at least 6. So it means complete protection from dust. Now the second digit's really what you're more interested in, because that has to deal with the water protection. And it's a numbering scheme that goes from 0 through 8, and you're likely to see IP64 through IP68. Now IP64 means that it can withstand splashing water. IP65 means it can withstand water jets. IP66 is power water jets, whatever difference that is. And IP67 is immersion up to 1 meter. And IP68 is immersion beyond 1 meter in water. So if you want to know exactly how they test those things, or what power water jets means, then I encourage you to look up IEC 60529. Most of these things have an epoxy cover on them. Now you will find some that are for indoor use only, no coating on them and all, but most of the ones that I've seen online do have some kind of coating and some kind of ingress protection. So look for something that's IP66 or better, and you'll be okay. Now another style, which I don't like quite as well, is this is in a flat tube, and the strip inside of it is not protected at all. And then what you have is the integrity of the seals on the end that determines how waterproof this actually is. So I don't like this as well as the epoxy conformal coating here, because that is just absolute. Now the last thing is, these are normally available in 5-meter strips, which is 16 feet and change. And you can cut them down to whatever size you need. And about every 3 inches there is actually a mark on here where you can cut them. So essentially, if I wanted to make a short strip, I would just cut it along that mark. And this is the shortest strip that I could use. So stay tuned for the next video, and we'll discuss the different types of remotes and how to power all these.